So welcome back. We have just one more presentation today, but a couple of quick items to mention before that. Right after this, we have a book signing. It's out where the registration was, so if any of you would like a book signed, the authors will be there, most of them, whether they speak today or tomorrow. Tomorrow, the breakfast starts at 8 o'clock instead of 7:30, since most people are already registered, but the show starts at the same time, 8:30. And if anyone would like to be added to an email list to find out when a conference might be in future years, why just drop a card in the book room, and we'll make sure you're on the list there. And we won't spam you or anything like that. It's just for this. Our next speaker is David Steinmetz. David has a background in astronomy and optical engineering, and he teaches the only course on the Yugas at a university today. He's a heck of a good guy, too. He's got a sort of a soulful approach to understanding these cycles that so many have talked about in these prior talks. Will you please welcome David Steinmetz?
Thank you very much. We're going to be going through the Yugas from the standpoint of the consciousness of each age. And before I get into that, I want to say just a word about the place where I've been teaching about these things. It's called the Ananda Institute of Alternative Living, up near Nevada City, north of Sacramento here. And it's kind of a new institution, but it's higher education. Well, we say higher education for higher consciousness. It's based on yoga principles, the most universal spiritual principles. It's based on living in cooperative community, and it's a view of the world based on these yuga cycles. It's very much as experiential as we can make it. So to understand about the yugas, we have to travel. Last year, our study abroad program went to Egypt and to India. Students spent 3 weeks in India and then joined a tour which we'd organized for Egypt. This year, or this spring, we're going to go to Peru. And you're all welcome, anyone who wants to join us in that tour. We're going to visit Machu Picchu, and Robert Schock is going to guide us to Markawasi. Very, very special place. So, let's go on. The concept of the Yugas that I want to introduce you to today comes from the work of Swami Sri Yukteswar. He's best known as the guru of Paramhansa Yogananda, who is very well known in this country, having spent his life here teaching. And so it's over 100 years ago now. He wrote a little book called The Holy Science. And in just the first little bit, the introduction to that book, he describes the cycle of yugas. And, whoops, too many buttons, there we go. What he did was restore an ancient understanding of these ages. It's quite different than the current popular notion in India today, but it's the one that seems to fit. But it's languished for 100 years, and over 100 years now, without getting a whole lot of attention. And thanks to Walter Cruttenden and these conferences and his work, it's becoming more widely known. And I think it's a very valuable model for putting together all that we've been hearing about today. Let's take a look at it. Like most of the legends around the earth, there's 4 ages. The higher age of Satya Yuga, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali is the age of lowest consciousness. And just about all traditions say that, well, after the end of the darkest age, we'll return to the highest again. Yukteswar says, well, that doesn't happen overnight. We return in the same steps we got there. Just like everything else in nature, the tide goes in and the tide goes out. We take 4 seasons to get to around the year. Everything is cyclic in that way. He also tied it in with the precession of the equinoxes. And I'm not going to say anything more about the precession of the equinoxes because what I'm going to concentrate on is the consciousness of the different ages. And we have barely enough time to even discuss that topic. What I want you to do is think of the Earth as a classroom. And in different ages offer different classes. Behind this notion, which makes some sense of this, is the idea that we are souls that take incarnation on the earth to fulfill our desires and learn lessons. Well, like any school, there's the freshmen and the seniors and the sophomores and so on. So there are different ages which attract souls with different levels of consciousness. And so when I talk about the consciousness of an age, I'm not talking about everybody, but just sort of the dominant consciousness, just the mass of people. There's always outstanding individuals. They're the ones that make it into the history books and build the special things, but just the mass of people in general. Now, Yukteswar put dates on this, and the 24,000 years is approximation of the precessional cycle. That's about 8% shorter than the astronomers would have it, but that's fine. You don't need to get too stuck on dates. Even he says it's approximate. But he says we went through the lowest of the lowest age at 500 AD. And since then, we've been in an ascending cycle. So, you know, historians look around and we see, oh yeah, everything's getting better and we're learning more and so on. It must have always been that way. Well, it says, sure, we descended from a higher age to a lower age, and now we're headed back up again. Since about 1700, we've entered into what's called the Dwapara Yuga. What I want to do now is start with each of these ages, and we'll work our way up. And in each one, I'll describe the consciousness of that age as based on Yukteswar's work and other relevant works, and I won't have time to describe where everything came from or qualify the grand generalizations, but just bear with me on that. The materialist age, the age of most involvement with matter, was the Kali Yuga. From 500 AD, whoops, go forward, there. In this age, our understanding is limited to what we can sense directly. Our realities are the forms of things. Everything is just what it appears to be, and that's all it can be. That leads to a sort of contraction. It says, well, this is my world, this is the way I see it, I've got to keep it this way, and that's all it is. So let's take as a symbol for each of these ages, we'll take as a symbol for this a solid block or a box that just resists any attempt to get out of the box. I put some rivets in there just to make it sure it would stay closed. Now, what motivates people? The fear of punishment. Because the people that are incarnated, especially in this age, are folks that need they need to be told what's the right thing to do. They need to be constrained to doing things the right way. They don't make any effort to speak of to do anything for themselves. This is not a time for the entrepreneur. This is not a time for people to really do a lot on their own behalf. So fear of punishment is what gets them along. All right? But the age progresses. The Dwapara age. That's the age of energy. Here, people begin to understand the reality of things is not their appearance, not their form. Underneath is the atoms, the molecules. We're already accustomed to these things, and we're just entering into this Dwapara age. Well, we've come from the material age, and we've added energy. So what's energy and matter? It's a machine. So when we want to do something, we think of doing it with a machine. Now, things that we did in the past with a lot of labor, we now do with a machine. Each age, we'll see as we go up here, solves the problems of the previous age in a higher way. Okay? And deals with a new